Thanks for joining us. Year 2 of our look back at the heroes, the tough guys, the good guys, the great races, the great cars, the great moments in IndyCar and open wheel racing. Thanks to Marshall Pruitt. He makes all this happen because he's the one that puts all these things together. And thanks to Gene Crucian and John Mahoney for their pictures that we use in these videos all year. So today we're going to talk about one of the best guys that never won the Indy 500. We've already talked about Lloyd Ruby, Gary Bettenhausen. There's Tony Bettenhausen, Rex Mays, Ted Horn, Mike Mosley. All those guys, Michael Andretti, all those guys are thought of as the greatest guys that never won the Indy 500. Well, there's a guy named Jack McGrath that is in that category too. McGrath came out of the roadster midget days, roadsters being sprint cars, that's what they became, in the 40s out of LA. And a spindly little guy. He wasn't a big, strong Mike Nazareth, Tony Bettenhausen, Jimmy Bryan guy. He was just a scrawny little guy, really, but he was a great mechanic. And I think part of McGrath's magic was, not only was he a good race driver, he worked on his own car, built his own engines, he was his own chief mechanic when he was at the Indianapolis 500. But think about this. This guy was in 8 Indy 500s. He started in the front row 6 times. Once on the pole, once he had quick time and didn't win the pole, but he had one thing that kept him out of victory lane. This guy right here, Bill Vukovich. That was his nemesis, his arch rival. They were friends, but they had some great duels in Indy. 1954, McGrath starts on the pole, leads his first 40 laps. Vuki starts 19th, still catches him, wins the race. McGrath finishes 3rd. 1955, we have a wonderful picture of Vuki diving into the grass, trying to pass McGrath, going into the first turn. They had a great duel for about 25 laps. And then McGrath lost a magneto, and then 3 or 4 laps later, Vuki lost his life. And as McGrath went on, he won 4 races. He won, he won at Syracuse, he won at Langhorne. The guy was a good race driver, but Indy was what he really lived for, and he worked on his own cars, and he used a lot of nitro when he qualified, and sometimes that came back to haunt him in the race, it sounds like, but everybody that knew him really liked him. At the end of the 55 season, he decided, you know what? I'm not going to race anymore except for the Indianapolis 500 because that's what I really love, that's my passion, that's what I'm really good at. So he told his car owner and a few people in his family, Phoenix, the mile dirt race at Phoenix in 1955 in November, 60 years ago this week, was going to be the last race he ever ran on the dirt. As it turned out, sadly, it was the last race he ever ran. The axle snapped, horrible flip, killed instantly. The end of a horrible season in 1955 that so many great race drivers lost their life. It was also the last race AAA ever sanctioned. USAC came along after that with Mr. Tony Hulman, and a few senators called for IndyCar racing to be banned. It was too barbaric, blah, blah, blah. Jack McGrath is a guy, if you look at Wikipedia, there's 3 or 4 paragraphs, there's no picture. People don't really talk about the guy, but believe me, he was one of the greatest drivers that never won the Indy 500, and certainly one of the fastest. So, as we move on, every week we're going to have a video, thanks to Marshall Pruitt, as we already told you. It's going to be about great drivers, great cars, great races, the things we all love, IndyCar and open wheel racing.